Fancy.
All right.
And then,
So here we go. Okay. Who's on the Zoom call? Oh, good. All right, and everybody signed in here, right? Okay. I'll send this over. So I've got stuff. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you for attending in person and on Zoom. And we are doing Pride of the Yankees is our discussion. And the next one will be September 22nd. If you want to do a save the date, that'll be the next time. And your vote will determine that for everyone attending. So, okay, everybody on Zoom. And David, I'm glad you're here because I wanted to ask you about something specifically. I'll reference you shortly. But if everyone on Zoom could.
What?
Had a lot to cover, so I wanted to get going because there's way more than I thought there would be for this movie. So usually David asks me why I picked this movie. So I wanted to address that up front. So sure, the Yankees were having a good season. It kind of made me think at the time I thought of it before they started slumping, but and it brought back some memories, and I saw it was on and I watched it and I was like, wow, this might be a good movie to discuss it. And the more I started looking into it, there's a lot we can discuss and we'll cover it. But this is personal to me because I grew up as a Yankee fan because my dad grew up in the Bronx and my dad's favorite player was Lou. Actually made his speech July 4th, 1939. So just over 82 years ago. And my dad was 12 years old and was in Yankee Stadium on this day. So I wanted you guys to see that. So I thought that was pretty cool. So there's a definite personal meaning to me, but there's a lot more going on in the movie. As I said in the email, it's really not a baseball movie per se. It's really more of actually a love story and a story of dignity and grace. But that was why I picked it. And anyway, how many people hadn't seen it before? Never, this was your first time? Wow, okay.
Oh, wow.
Wow, about half. Wow, I'm surprised. Okay. And so for all those you've seen it or for the first time or seen it before, thumbs up. Yes?
Yeah.
Liked it? Okay. All right, good. Okay. Not everybody though. Okay. All right. And then others, you did not like it. Who did not like the movie? Okay. So there's some in the middle. Yeah, in the middle. You aren't raising your hands at all. I don't know what you guys are doing. Okay. All right. Some in the middle. Okay. All right. So for those who did like it, what did you like about it? Anyone want to speak? Yes?
Okay, so. Okay, well, first of all, I can't get always out of my head
The song.
the song. Oh, I can't get that out of my head now. Okay, so besides that,
You gotta speak loudly so
I
that,
was looking forward to it because it was directed by Ed Wood. And I
Sam
was
Wood.
like,
Sam.
wow, Ed Wood.
No,
that's
no.
gonna be different.
there was an Ed Wood who was a director.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, very different.
I'm
Made
kidding.
Oh, that's a joke.
the worst movies ever. So yeah, okay.
That was a joke. Okay, so that was the first thing I was excited about. So after we were like in the movie for about 5 minutes, I thought of It's a Wonderful Life because it just seemed like very that kind of thing, black and white. And I was just thinking of It's a Wonderful Life, and then sure enough, who was in it? Ernie.
Ernie was in it?
Ernie was on the train. Ernie.
Ah,
They're talking about the hat, Babe's hat.
Fighting.
And that was Ernie from Wonderful Life.
Ah. Well, there's another
I didn't know
connection to
that.
It's a Wonderful Life. One of the writers of this movie, Joe Swirling, who was who wrote like everything in Hollywood for 15 years. He was one of the writers of It's a Wonderful Life, and he was one of the writers on this movie. So
Well,
there's
there-
another
see,
connection.
amazes me too.
Anyone else with positive thoughts on it?
Behind you.
Yes.
You know, since Lou Gehrig, can anybody here say the name of anybody that the children, adults could look up to as a genuine, clean-cut hero to anyone?
That was good.
That was it. That was kind of my contention. It's pretty rare. I mean,
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter, maybe,
Also the captain of the Yankees.
right?
Tom Brady.
American hero, yeah.
32,
It wasn't
also-
like,
Not a fantastic baseball player. He played 2,130
30.
games,
Yeah.
but he was a hero because the way he ended and the way he had a terrible disease, but he was gracious and you just couldn't help really feeling bad for this man who was so charming and so lovable. And he was a hero. And we don't have those.
So anyone else have anything on pros or cons they want to say about it? I'm looking at the Zoom people too. No?
well, we'll talk about why we don't have heroes anymore.
I think that's a great point.
Because in those days, you saw them drinking on the train and
Yep.
schmoozing with women and blah, 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 and that was all squashed under the thing. And we'll bring up later on that their marriage wasn't that happy, and they wanted to have children, and his mother was very, very nasty to the wife.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, would refuse to let them adopt and all this kind of stuff.
He looks it up, yeah.
Oh,
And,
the first,
yeah, I
my
mean,
God.
look, they were married for how many years? Have a discussion, why they, you know.
What I read was she may have been, because it was only speculative, obviously health issues, but even back then, but she may have been unable to conceive was what I read. It wasn't specified for sure. We don't know if it could have been, maybe he was unable, we don't know. But
And
Right.
as a Met fan, I want you to know, the thing about Jeter, which is, you know, because Malloy says Mike Piazza, is if Jeter played in those days, God knows what kind of violence he would have been, because he was subjected to the TV and the people with cameras in the bars and everything else. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think Derek Jeter should go up there.
wow, even as a Met fan
He
saying
should be
that.
the pride of the Yankees.
What?
Is Derek Jeter.
Well, considering what they go through now, you know,
Yes, it's
this
different.
movie was
It's
made at a
true.
time when
Give me the
everything was so
clarification.
beautiful, everything.
Well, and to your point, you even see the reporter burying some of the stories towards the end about the disease. The reporter knew, but he was going to make sure it didn't get out and all that. And
Right.
that obviously doesn't happen anymore.
No.
It's the opposite.
No, but I was really taken by, the fact that he was an American hero, and it was a generation of American heroes. It was the greatest generation, right? Or those folks. And I felt like the movie was about, I think it was about baseball in a sense, and what baseball then, the war was started. We got into the war in 1941.
Right.
We just gotten bombed by Japan, Pearl Harbor in 1941. He died in 1941. They came out with the movie in 1942. And I felt like baseball, it was a good feel for America then to have that movie. And I felt like baseball has been like a comfort food that feeds our entire nation. That's what I came up with that whole thing. And I felt the same way after
Where'd he go? The computer's.
9/11. Baseball made us all feel like things were getting normal again.
Right.
So I don't know if they felt it was normal in 1942 because the war continued on, but I just feel there's some sort of parallel there. And
Right. It's some sort of rallying around an American hero.
yeah,
But do you
So I think that makes a lot of
now
sense.
baseball is still
I do, because I think I do. Yeah, because I felt very comforted by baseball starting again after 9/11. If you talk to the players, or if you remember those games, like the
Well, the
Met
Mike
game.
Piazza game was considered
Right.
a great moment,
Yeah,
The
it
Hall of
was a
Fame.
great moment. Everybody felt, I don't know about everybody, but I
But
certainly
things
felt
have
great.
soured. The point of watching this movie now is you see how much the country has changed, right? How much, in those days, we wanted everything to be good. We wanted people to be good. We didn't want to, you know, and it was a happier time. It was a much more innocent time.
Right.
And all of those things were happening at that time. They just weren't.
Publicized.
You could just pull the one side up.
Froze again.
Beautiful. Are you there?
Froze, didn't he just say?
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the
So
movie was very sugar coated. I mean, it was corny. as
I'll
can
get to
be.
that. Yep, that's a fair point.
So corny and sugar coated.
That would be Hollywood.
Corny,
But that's how they.
Right.
was then.
used to be able
Right,
to
so-
have an
So I want to get to
They want to sell.
the critics' consensus. Critics' consensus on the movie, Rotten Tomatoes at a 94 from the critics and 89 from audiences, which is a little surprising. The consensus was the equally tragic and heroic story of Yankees first baseman Lou Gehrig is eloquently told here with an iconic star turn by Gary Cooper. And in Britannica.com, notable performances, especially by Gary Cooper in the title role, an inspiring story. It's considered one of the best American sports films. Release date was July 14th, 1942, basically 1 year after Gehrig died. At the box office, and I have to tell you, Sam Goldwyn okayed making the movie, but he figured sports movies were poison at the box office. So he wanted to oversee some of how the movie was made, but he also did it in consultation with Ellie Gehrig, Gehrig's widow, because he wanted to make sure he honored his story. So she did have a say, and he said, if you want anything changed, you let me know. And after she walked out of the screening ahead of time, she said, I wouldn't change a thing. So
Well, that's amazing.
she thought they nailed it right away on the first, you know, without having to change anything. But at the box office, it did $4.2 million.
Right.
So in 1940s, I'm thinking, that sounds like a good number, but what does it translate to? Well, I looked it up, 75.5 million.
That's not bad.
So it was at the time, Goldwyn as an independent producer, that was the highest grossing. It actually blends facts with fiction. There are some surprising facts in the movie. But both Gary Cooper and Teresa Wright received Academy Award nominations. Interesting, I thought to note was that Babe Ruth, Bill Dickey, and several of the other players played themselves, which I
Yes.
thought was pretty cool to see.
Mhm.
I'll get to the director, Sam. At the writers, Joe Swerling also worked on Gone with the Wind, Lifeboat, It's a Wonderful Life, and Guys and Dolls.
Wow.
Herman Mankiewicz, the co-writer, wrote with Orson Welles, Citizen Kane, The Wizard of Oz, Dinner at 8, and another film, interestingly, called 10 years after this one, called Pride of St. Louis, about Dizzy Dean.
Yeah.
I had no idea there was a Pride of St. Louis about Dizzy Dean, but this is
Yeah.
kind of interesting, and now I'm kind of curious about it. But Dizzy Dean, obviously not nearly on the level of Lou Gehrig, but apparently he had an interesting story.
He ended his career as a Yankee.
Yeah, very end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very end. That's right. I do remember that. Thank you. But good point. So the film had 10 Academy Award nominations. Best Picture was 1. The only one, a screenplay, lead actor and actress, art direction, the score, which I didn't like the score at all. I thought it was way overdone, but you know, you got to go back 80 years. Writing, original story, cinematography, and sound. The only thing it won for was editing. 10 nominations, but it at least 10 nominations. I don't know. It says our internet's a little unstable. So I wanted to get to a few things about Gehrig. For those not real familiar with how great a player he really was, his lifetime, there's a stat called OPS. Baseball real fans really know what it is. It's on base plus slugging average. So how many times they?
Over 1,000.
Gehrig was third all time. The only two who were ahead of him were Babe Ruth and Ted Williams. So he was up that high. That gives you an idea. Also, besides the 2,130 games, he hit 23 grand slams, which stood as a major league record for more than 70 years until A-Royd, as I call him, eclipsed the mark. And Gehrig's, they call it WAR, which is wins above replacement. So if he didn't play and an average guy played in his place, how many extra wins would the team with Gehrig have? Over his lifetime, 140.
Keep going in and out.
You can't do anything about it.
Among the best all-time, 632 slugging percentage, which is extra base hits. And in the postseason, he had a 361 batting average and 731 slugging percentage, second best among all players with 100 or more playoff plate appearances, which is huge. In World Series, he's tied for 5th in home runs and 3rd in RBIs. And okay. Now I wanted to get to the director. All right. So Sam Wood had 3 Oscar nominations. He directed, not Oscar nominated, but he directed 2 Marx Brothers movies.
Oh,
Vicente Minnelli was sick for a while. He directed Gone with the Wind, part of it. He was the fill-in director for Gone with the Wind. His nominations were for Goodbye, Mr. Chips, Kitty Foyle, and King's Row. The only one I'm familiar with is Goodbye, Mr. Chips, which I thought was a very good movie. Interestingly enough, this is not the only baseball movie he directed. This was in 42. In 49, he directed The Stratton Story. Anyone familiar with that?
No.
no.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart.
God. It's frozen. She's trying to make a change.
Ed, keep losing you.
You're losing.
He encouraged his loving spouse. Did we lose it?
Yeah, and we keep
We're losing.
going in and out.
Ed, we're losing you.
I think he's gone now.
You're buffering.
Buffering.
We want Ed. Where's Ed?
Now he's completely gone.
Completely.
You're the host, Rebecca.
Rebecca's the host. You're the host now. Okay, what's it like in the
He's
Berkshires?
coming back. He's coming back. Let him in.
Well,
Let
what
him
should
in.
we talk about?
Let him in, Rebecca.
I would like to see your new apartment.
Who's back?
Ed, you are buffering big
Come
time.
visit.
Okay. Not there. He's frozen again, I think.
Amy, what's happening?
Not much. Just played golf today. And it's hot here.
Are you living there
Yeah.
full time now? Are you living there around the?
Yeah, I sold my house last year, rented an apartment just outside of Boston. So I'll be here until beginning of November, and then I'll be down in East Point until, end of May, early June.
Amy, we're hearing you. I don't know if you can hear us, but we're hearing
She
you.
doesn't care.
Well, we're having our own conversation because
That's
we couldn't hear you.
Welcome
Yeah.
back.
You keep buffering.
All right, I don't know when it cut out, but I was talking about the Stratton Story with James Stewart. And with the encouragement of his loving spouse after his injury, he decided to get back in the game with a prosthetic leg, and he eventually worked his way back to pitching in the minor leagues. So there are some similarities to the Gehrig story and the Monty Stratton story. I thought that was kind of interesting. So when Gehrig died of ALS, Sam Wood determined that a film biography was in order. The career of the, quote, modest and likable, unquote, Gehrig, during which he played more than 2,000 games. Wood was met with resistance from studio executives to the project, and because Goldwyn thought it was only going to appeal to male sports fans. Okay, looks like we got it, but the internet was kind of unstable, but we think we got it fixed.
No, it's not working.
They're all frozen.
Everyone's kind of frozen on there, so it's a little, I don't know if that's them or us,
I don't
but
think they can hear it.
We can hear it.
It's you, Ed. You're unfrozen again.
Well, and Amy said she's gonna be down here. I didn't hear when.
November 11th.
Yeah, she was. I think she comes to the
They
Play
would-
for Pink.
Yeah, I'll be there for Play for Pink, October 12th.
looks like it's a DC signal.
Frozen again,
Why
Ed.
it just stops them.
Yeah, we're trying, yeah, see, that's what it's saying, low system resources.
Yeah,
It says it right there.
you keep freezing. We can hear you, but you're freezing. Up
Oh, now he's moving.
and frozen again.
Too bad. It was a good movie to discuss.
Forget about the, what, 5 seconds in the freeze? 5 seconds in the freeze? I told Ed, I saw it probably 50 years ago, first time I saw the
Me
film.
too. Yeah, me too.
Well, you know, from my perspective as a Canadian, it was a very American movie. In that way. It was like,
Who would have thought that?
who'd have thought that?
What made it an
really-
American? Yeah, I mean, did you not enjoy it?
That, no, I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy the first half. I enjoyed the second half. I didn't understand, Ed was talking earlier about the relationship between them, that it wasn't always good. It looked like a real great love story. There were so many
Yeah.
love stories in there, and that one seemed like so powerful. And I was surprised they didn't have children. I was really, that surprised me.
But Hollywood made it a wonderful relationship.
I like it. I like when they do that.
Of course, but it may not be
Right.
true.
I don't
Nice,
care.
but not true.
I like it. I like movies and I don't care. I like it was entertaining. It's a beautiful love story. The guy was an American hero. I mean, I think that's.
Okay, I think Ed's back now. I think we got Ed back.
All right, we're sort of back now. Okay.
Thank you.
Toward the back.
I think so.
All right, so I'm sorry about that, guys. We're just having some internet issues here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help.
Ed,
Can you
I have
hear
a
us
question. Ed, can you hear me? How'd they get this movie made as the war was going on? How do you do that when, you know, the US is engaged in this heavy, was it a distraction? You were talking about it a bit. Was it meant to be a distraction?
It was meant to be basically a positive American patriotic values movie.
Right.
Of course.
And they define it as such when you're making that movie? Is that how they think about it?
Oh, yeah. No, that was very conscious from what I read. That was a very conscious decision.
Yeah,
And
Hollywood.
what year was it made?
1942.
It was made in, it came out in 42. So they really.
Thank you.
31.
How much later after he retired did he pass away? How long did he live after that?
Not even 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All right. I think that's.
Sad, so sad.
Yeah, he was 37, I think, when he died.
Yeah, it
That's
was-
so young.
He made the speech in 39 and he was dead in 41.
Yeah.
So about 2 years. But so I wanted to get to the director because there's a lot here with Sam Wood. So he pushed for the movie to get made. He was an ardent sports fan and he was able to persuade Goldwyn to make it. And they both agreed it would be an ideal vehicle for Gary Cooper. A quote, kind of idealization of the American male. And significantly under contract to Goldwyn, Gary Cooper owed him one more movie. So there you go, it worked out. Now the interesting part was, and you may have seen this, David, in your research, Gary Cooper was basically ignorant about baseball as a sport. Wood encouraged and supported him and to help him create a satisfactory portrayal of Gehrig, matching, quote, the perfect actor with the perfect director, assuring the film's success. While filming on the set, Wood was initially dismayed at what first appeared to be Cooper's inept acting. Upon reviewing the actual footage, he was relieved and pleased to discover his, quote, underplaying it translated effectively to the screen. Because he was playing a humble guy, so he didn't, overly emote. Okay, and Pride of the Yankees remains one of the best and most popular screen biographies, as well as the quintessential baseball movie. Now, Wood was an interesting character because he was an ardent anti-communist. And when McCarthyism started to rise in the late 40s, he was big behind that. So there's some controversy here. In 1943, he reduced much of the anti-fascist content of For Whom the Bell Tolls, which he directed, saying it would be the same love story if they were on the other side. In 1944, he founded and served as the first president of the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals, an organization that was, quote, dedicated to seeking out and expelling those people it considered traitorous to American interests, unquote. The organization was, and it says here, formed of management and labor in the film industry, quietly lobbied the House Un-American Activities Committee to examine purported communist elements in the movie industry, which they did in 1947. So he was one of the people behind that. He'd been keeping a black notebook in which he wrote the names of those he considered subversive. His daughter said that his crusade, quote, transformed Dad into a snarling, unreasoning brute, unquote.
Oh,
There was nothing in his personal and professional demeanor during the course of his long career that anticipated the intensity of his anti-communist rage, which disappointed some of his friends and greatly concerned his family. In 1949, he protested against a liberal screenwriter who was suing the group for slandering him, and he suffered a fatal heart attack.
oh, good.
He had added a condition to his will. No one, including his children, could collect their inheritance until they filed a legal affidavit affirming they had never been communists.
Gee,
Was obsessed with it.
So his daughter, upon his death, said, I think two things contributed to my father's death. He was age 66. One was the energy he burned up making the movie Ambush on location. They were at an elevation of 9,000 feet for several weeks, and Dad never stopped. He was first up in the morning, and younger actors were amazed at the way he ran around all day. The second thing was politics. His anti-communist anger was so deep, he seized with it, and I believe it affected his health. He did receive a star on the Hollywood Walk
The
of Fame in
director,
1960.
Sam Woods.
His biographer, Tony Thomas, wrote this as kind of a eulogy for him. Wood's death meant little to the public, but it marked the end of a long and respectable film career. He'd been in the business 40 years, and he'd seen it grow from infancy to a major industry. Rarely did he show signs of brilliance, yet he was never at any time less than thoroughly professional. The work is the man. Sam Wood was uncomplicated, self-assured, clear-minded, and he enjoyed working. Insofar as he understood it, he was a master of his craft. That's like a half compliment, half insult, right?
Yeah.
Sounds to me like, and maybe because of obviously this anti-American, well, anti-communist thing, Tony Thomas may have been a little standoffish when he was doing his eulogy.
A left-handed compliment.
Right, at best. So anyone have any thoughts on the director? Anyone familiar with him at all, or any comments?
No.
Fred?
No.
Okay, I thought you were, okay, sorry, you lit up for a second. Okay, nobody here. All right. Now, on Gary Cooper, there's a lot on Gary Cooper. Interestingly enough, I just thought this was kind of funny. I know Craig might get a kick out of this. Gary Cooper's mother was Alice Cooper.
Oh, wow. Is that how Alice Cooper took the name?
Yeah, that was just her name, yeah. Gary Cooper was on a stamp, a commemorative stamp issued in March 1990 honoring classic films. It featured him as the title character of Bo Jess. The other films honored were Stagecoach, Wizard of Oz, and Gone with the Wind. Despite his wholesome screen image, he was an infamous and privately boastful womanizer in reality, allegedly having had affairs with numerous famous leading ladies. Gary Cooper.
Oh, wow.
His Oscar-winning roles were in High Noon, which was kind of his comeback after he made some bad movies for a while. That was in '52. Also, Sergeant York in 1941. And they were ranked number 5 and number 35 in the American Film Institute's Heroes list in their 100 years of the greatest screen heroes. He was voted 18th greatest movie star of all time by Entertainment Weekly. He was actually name-checked in the song Putting on the Ritz. He was in Premiere Magazine. He was voted the number 42 greatest movie star. He'd been in 107 movies, 82 of which he starred in.
Wow.
Number 11 greatest actor on the 50 greatest screen legends list by the American Film Institute. He made two movies with Teresa Wright, not only Pride of the Yankees, but 2 years later, Casanova Brown, which was also directed by Sam Wood. Let's see. He appeared in 8
criticism I read on Gary
I want to
Cooper.
get to Walter Brennan in a second, because he was a character as well. So Walter Brennan, if you didn't know, played Sam Blake, the newspaper guy, who was basically his best friend, which
Oh,
was
wow.
modeled on a real character, not named Sam Blake, but there was a newspaper man who was maybe his best friend in real life, Lou Gehrig's. All right, while I'm on Walter Brennan, he appeared in some 30 movies. He started out as a cabbie in Sam Goldwyn's The Wedding Night in 1935, and he so impressed Goldwyn.
Yes.
Can you guys just mute yourself if you're not talking for all of us? Thanks. He was hired as a minor role as a cabbie in Goldwyn's The Wedding Night, and Sam Goldwyn was so impressed with him that he signed him to a long-term contract, and that's why he started appearing like all these movies, because he was in a long-term contract. Barbary Coast was his first big part, working with Howard Hawks. What was interesting also, oh, David, yes. Fire away. You gotta unmute yourself. now.
I read this article on Gary Cooper. He was 41 when he made the movie, and he was playing a 19-year-old. So the disparity in age was a big criticism this critic was writing about. He thought it was inappropriate for Gary Cooper to be playing young Lou Gehrig, that they should have brought in someone else or done it because he was,
Had two different actors play him.
yeah, or he was
Okay,
too
well,
old.
In fairness, or the other argument to that is, he was only a 2-year difference between him and Lou Gehrig's real age. So
But
towards
not
the
at
end of the movie,
19,
at least,
not
it
at
was
19.
closer. But yeah, but you're right in the beginning. But look, all the people when at Columbia University, did you see all those guys? None of them look college age. They all look like they were 30.
I thought all the ball players looked much too old to be ball players,
Right,
all of them, but
right,
that's me.
right. Yeah, everybody was older than they played, true. Okay, so anyway, so Walter Brennan, I got to know Walter Brennan a little because I didn't really know of his film history. I remembered him from TV.
Right, right.
He was in
The
The Real McCoys,
Right.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Grandpappy.
He was head of the
Exactly, you
clan.
got it. So he was in The Real McCoys when I was a little kid. But he was, I'm trying to see if he won 3 Oscars or yeah, he won 3 Oscars, which was kind of unusual, all in a row. But in his final years, Brennan generated controversy because he was ultra conservative. He thought the civil rights movement was backed by foreign communists, and he was a member of the John Birch Society.
Oh, good heavens.
His professional philosophy, though, was, my advice to actors, very simple. Do your acting, son, but don't get caught at it.
That's funny.
I have a question.
Yes.
At first, as I said, I thought all the ball players looked too old to be ball players. But I also thought that you said that Gary Cooper was underplaying his role. I thought the rest of them were members of Actors Overacting Anonymous. That I think it's because they were not that far removed from talkies coming in, that they were used to expressing everything with their faces and their emotions, and they in my opinion, overdid it.
Okay, that may be. I mean, it was a little removed because the talkies ended like late 20s for the most part, early 30s, and this was, about another decade. But many of the actors, you're right, were acting originally in the talkies, including Gary Cooper. He made like 12 silent films. So yeah.
Ed,
Yes.
I think that Lou Gehrig's wife never married. Maybe I'm wrong, but I
Never
think I.
remarried. That's correct. That
Yeah.
is, Kelly never remarried. Yep. I'll say so. Gary Cooper, another kind of interesting thing. He was very close friends with Ernest Hemingway for 20 years. Hemingway shot himself a month after Gary Cooper died. So I don't know if there's a connection, but it's kind of interesting.
Maybe he was gay. Was Gary Cooper married?
What?
Was Gary Cooper
Yes,
married?
more than once.
2 times.
I don't remember. I had it somewhere in here, but I can't find it right now.
Yeah, Mrs. Cooper.
Another point about the fact that so many members of the baseball teams look older. I suspect that many of the younger people had been inducted into service during the war.
Right. Yeah, good point.
Who said that? Amy, was that you?
No, I'm Ned's mother. Hi.
Oh,
Well, Babe Ruth looked like, he was Babe Ruth.
It was Babe Ruth. He
And
was
he
old.
looked older.
He was.
Yeah, but I think everybody sort of looked older. Like my grandfather looked old, like when he was my age, and I don't.
I look old.
Uh,
Ed, question, I have a question.
yes, Sorry.
The relationship between the newspaper broadcaster guy and Lou Gehrig seemed odd to me. They were like, he was like his father. He was like his, close friend, father. Is that real? Was that real?
It was exaggerated, but he really did have a very close friend with a newspaper man, and his name is in here somewhere. I'm not sure I can find it, but that was based on a true story. They just embellished it a bit. But a very close friend, like maybe his best friend, was this newspaper man.
Already.
So he did kind of serve as help steer his career a bit.
He was an advocate, and that other reporter,
Dan Derriere, the
Yeah,
actor,
yeah.
was Hank.
right? Yeah, that's not real, but he was a Ruth advocate.
He was a
so
pro-Ruth
that-
guy, right.
So there was like that
Yeah.
little thing going on.
Right. Yeah, there were a couple other themes I thought were kind of interesting. You remember when when Ellie first sees him on the field and he trips over the bat to make his first,
Yes,
so
yes.
she called him Tanglefoot and everyone starts cheering it. There was a kind of a theme throughout the movie, if you noticed it, about tripping and with the feet.
Yeah,
So they kind of carried that through several times.
yeah.
And my guess is that was intentional because it was how, unexpected a disease like this was and how it affects you. It brings you down right away and when you didn't expect it. That's my take on it. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it was put there. It was just reading into it. That was because it was such a constant theme. It was a constant theme where
It's interesting. Yeah.
he trips on that and then, she made fun of him. When she comes into the restaurant, the steakhouse in Chicago, he trips her back.
Yeah.
And then if you remember the scene in the frat house also,
Right.
when he's serving the food and they make fun of him, he leaps across the table. And when the guy was trying to get away, he grabs him by the foot and trips him. And then there was another scene later when Garrick's trying to tie his shoe and the disease has hit him and he falls over his feet. So they brought it through several different times. I thought it was kind of a theme carried through. Another one, which I thought was kind of interesting, and I give Sam Wood credit for this, was his directing style at the end of the movie when Garrick has to make that long, slow walk in the dugout, and the camera pans along with him, tracks right there, and you just see how, it's like the final walk, final look at his teammates.
Right.
And then at the end, the same thing when he walks into the dugout and just kind of almost like fading into the sunset. And that was how the movie ended. He goes off into the, into the stands and he's gone, that's it. So I thought that was
And they said,
nice
play ball.
yes, and they say play ball because the game continues,
Baseball
but
continues.
he's out, right? Because and as I read it online at that time, that was Joe DiMaggio's team. He was the captain of the team at that point when they were having that ceremony for Garrick. I don't know if he was captain, but it was basically his team at the time.
The manager.
He was the leader. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay, so there's some interesting Gary Cooper quotes. Until I came along, all the leading men were handsome, but luckily they wrote a lot of stories about the fellow next door. To get folks to like you, I figured you had to sort of be their ideal. I don't mean a handsome knight riding a white horse, but a fellow who answered the description of a right guy. People ask me, how come you've been around so long? Well, it's through playing the part of Mr. Average Joe American. And when he accepted his Academy Award for Sergeant York, he said, it was Sergeant York who won this award because to the best of my ability, I tried to be Sergeant York. Shucks, I've been in the business 16 years and sometimes dreamed I might get one of these things. That's all I can say. Funny, when I was dreaming, I always made a good speech. And he said, movie acting is a pretty silly business for a man because it takes less training, less ability, and less brains to be successful in it than any other business I could think of.
Oh, that's a
Gary
good
Cooper,
quote.
yeah.
Careful.
So he also did a USO tour of New Guinea in 1943 during the war. There's no coin in Hollywood, rich as it is, that can pay a fellow the way I've been paid for my little effort on behalf of the GIs out there. It was the greatest emotional experience of my life. Now in 1947, he made a couple other statements that were kind of interesting. I feel very strongly actors haven't any business at all to shoot their faces off about things we know very little about. And then he said,
Very different nowadays.
Work on that.
very same thing. He said, same interview in 1947. I've turned down quite a few scripts because I thought they were tinged with communistic ideas. So that was interesting as well. All right, what else did I have here? Anyone have
We
any?
get along well today in America.
Anyone have anything they want to interject at this point?
In the beginning, you had said that there were a lot of things in the movie that were factual and some that were not. And I thought it would be interesting to touch on that.
Okay, as far as I could tell, the scene with Billy, the kid in the hospital,
Right.
mostly legitimate, not 100%. There was no necessarily where Gary went back after all the cameras had left, but Babe Ruth did have that conversation, did promise the kid he'd hit a home run. Some of the details may have been changed, but that basic premise was correct and accurate. No information could I find about Billy coming back later To see Gehrig walking at the end there when Billy was, I couldn't find anything about that. That may have been fabricated.
That whole scene when Billy was standing there and Lou walked by him and he said, "Do you recognize me?" Lou's reaction was very kind of less than enthusiastic.
Yes, because here he helped inspire this kid and now he can't save himself. He's dying and he knows it. So he's very conflicted. Sure, he's happy for the kid, but it just brought back to him, here he's dying.
He can't,
Happy for the kid, but
Yeah, he's basically going to say goodbye when he gets into, to the world.
right. So that was a tough moment for him, but I'm sure he was happy for the kid, but
Yeah.
his own mortality was, forefront in his mind.
And even
Right.
And there's one thing I question.
Yes,
I remember that the Babe Ruth promised the kid he would hit a home run, and he did. I never heard about Lou Gehrig.
That's a good point.
Right.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
giving to.
right. Right. That I couldn't find anything about that either. There were some, all right, there's a couple things I want to get into too. Let me see, we got a little bit of time. Okay. I found the actual original New York Times movie review from 1942 when the movie came out. Bosley Crowther, the great Bosley Crowther from the New York Times, was the critic. And he wrote, "So many hundreds of persons loved Lou Gehrig with a devotion few men know, and literally thousands of others held him in such true regard that film biographers of the modest and valiant ball player assumed an obligation too ticklish for casual approach. But no one can say that Sam Goldwyn has not been respectful of its due. In a simple, tender, meticulous, and explicitly narrative film," and it's interesting he said meticulous, because side note here, everyone who worked with Sam Wood said he was really like a perfectionist in getting the right take. He would make them do it over and over to get it right, which I'm sure was interesting when he did 2 Marx Brothers movies, because those guys, but that's what he said. So anyway, a meticulous and explicitly narrative film. Goldwyn and his associates have told the story of Lou with sincere and lingering affection, in face of which dramatic punch has been subdued. It's called Pride of the Yankees, and it opened at the Astor last night. And also they opened it in 40 neighborhood theaters around New York for the opening. For months, Goldwyn had seen to it that the word generally got around that this was not to be so much the story of Lou Gehrig, the great ball player, as of Lou Gehrig, a fine and humble man. That advice was absolutely on the level. The Pride of the Yankees is primarily a review of the life of shy and earnest young fellow who loved his mother, worked hard to get ahead, incidentally became a ball player for 2 reasons, because he loved the game and also needed the cash. Also true. Enjoyed a clumsy romance, which eventually enriched his life, and then at the height of his glory was touched by the finger of death. It is, without being pretentious, a real saga of American life. Homely, humorous, sentimental, and composed in patient detail.
I agree.
Sports fans will protest, with reason on their side, that a picture about a baseball player should have a little more baseball in it. Quite true. This one has considerable footage showing stands and diamonds. Anyway, what they show, but it says it only shows glimpses or montage sequence, and he complained you really don't even get the score of a lot of the games. So he said, for a baseball movie, there was too little baseball. But that was his only criticism. But as a simple moving story with an ironic heart tug at the end, it serves as a fitting memorial to the real Lou, who called himself the luckiest man alive. Now, he wrote, this is interesting because no one would ever know this unless you lived through it. Preceding the feature on the program, and made at Goldwyn's request, is a deliciously confused Disney cartoon, a goofy burlesque called How to Play Baseball. That was kind of fun to have that in there. And Goldwyn insisted that that's what would be there. Vanity Fair in 2017 had an article by Richard Sandomir, The Pride of the Yankees, Lou Gehrig, Gary Cooper, and the Making of a Classic. And he talks about how it opened with the kind of lavish nighttime premiere, a brightly lit marquee, cameras flashing, that defined the golden era of Hollywood. It was the first great sports movie. Opened at 8 months into the US involvement in World War II, and bright evening premieres would soon be eliminated as part of wartime blackout procedure. From now on, wrote Pride of the Yankees cantankerous independent producer Goldwyn to Joseph Schenck of 21st Century Fox, all this is verboten. Okay.
I have another observation, okay?
Yes, go ahead, Stan.
I was surprised that in a story about Lou Gehrig, that they go to a nightclub and they paused the story to have a woman sing an entire song, and then the orchestra play an entire number with other people dancing before he and she finally got involved. I thought, was
Yeah.
it, did they want to make the movies longer?
Right, I thought that too. That was
Great
very
point.
long.
The only thing I could speculate on is the orchestra that was playing at that club did the orchestration, did the music in the movie.
They did.
And I'm guessing it was sort of a quid pro quo thing, that they give them the screen time if you're gonna do, and maybe they got a deal. I don't know. That's just my guess, because I agree with you. Didn't make sense to have the scene that be that long for no real purpose. I agree with you. Yep. So anyway, Cooper never played baseball. He had a 6-week tutorial from Lefty O'Doul, a former National League batting champion. Now also remember, Gary Cooper was a righty, Lou Gehrig was a lefty. There was a lot of rumors about filming backwards and using it so he could swing the bat and everything. There was only one scene where that was done, and it was really for throwing the ball, not hitting it. And it was when he was wearing the Hartford uniform, which interestingly enough, if you remember, they just had an H on it. So you can look at it backwards or forwards and it's still an H.
Ah.
That worked out. So that way he was throwing the ball righty, but they filmed it so he was actually throwing it lefty. I mean, it made it look like it.
I commented to Barbara that I thought he had a really unconvincing swing,
Right.
actually, and that he threw the ball not like an athlete. So I thought that was not so great of Gary Cooper. But
Right.
I'm highly critical.
No, that's true.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Roger noticed that in part of the movie, he didn't have a number on his.
Yes,
Was
that's
there a
correct.
certain time?
Yeah.
They-
Yeah, they put the numbers on a little later, and really when it started, the reason Gehrig had number 4 is because that was his number in the batting order. He was the 4th in the order. Babe Ruth wore number 3 because he batted 3rd. So that was the original part of the numbers. And I don't know if the Yankees were the first team to do that, but it might have been. They were definitely one of the first. So but they really didn't have numbers before that. Yeah, but the announcers, I think, kind of pushed for it, so it'd be easier for them to tell when they're up high who was who, right?
And 4, of course, the cleanup batter was batter number 4,
Right.
most important spot in the lineup.
Good point, Stan. You're right. I should have mentioned that. That is theoretically the most, the guy who drives in the most runs is usually in the number 4 slot.
Yep.
Right.
Behind you.
Yes, David.
Is there any, Lloyd was surprised that Babe Ruth was in the movie because I was telling her that Babe Ruth did not love Lou Gehrig at all. So was there any mention about how much he got paid, like did he get paid for the movie and all?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I didn't see how much he got paid though. I didn't see how much, but of course, you're acting in a movie, you're gonna get paid.
And I have one more question.
Sure.
If it was supposed to be a secret, how did everyone know that he was dying? Everyone just that he was dying, everything else.
No, they didn't. And my father told me, he said, because he was there, but he was only 12, but he said they knew it was a serious illness because he couldn't play baseball anymore. And, he had been playing and what happened. So there were the suspicions, but nobody knew for sure in the stands. So it was just a suspicion, kind of a hunch. So let's see. So the article goes on, 75 years since its release, it still ranks as one of the best sports films ever made. Cooper, a master of playing men of quiet dignity, was the ideal actor to play him, even if he had to learn Lou's sport from scratch. More important, his rendition of Gehrig's speech in which he declared he was the luckiest man on the face of the earth, which somebody wrote was in sports, that was kind of the equivalent of the Gettysburg Address, right? Which I thought was a pretty good point. Despite being noticed with his perpetuated his legacy, and the chemistry between Cooper and Wright fulfilled Goldwyn's mandate that pride be a romantic picture.
I also thought it was odd. I'm not a doctor, but I didn't think you found Lou Gehrig's disease from x-rays. Remember when the doctor came in and he said the x-rays? I thought Lou Gehrig's disease was neurological.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to make any comments to the medical accuracy. Jeremiah, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I don't know, or David.
No, you don't use x-rays.
No.
That's what I thought.
But again, they're making it for the layman to see it. I think they didn't want to get too technical about it, so
Right.
that was what I think they came up with.
Hey,
Now, so
I thought,
interesting
what?
part here about, if you remember the very beginning of the movie, or Craig, do you have a question?
Very good.
No, it was just my anecdote I wanted to get in before we closed up.
Okay, yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, so my uncle who didn't at the time care anything about baseball, all he cared about was opera. Worked in the army and he decided to go visit a friend up in the Bronx. And he's at one of the tenements that are right outside Yankee Stadium. And he actually hears Lou Gehrig doing the address. And he has no clue what's going on, but he heard what was going on. Yeah, I hear this guy, lucky man, face, and he has no idea what's going on. But
Wow.
that was perfect because he didn't care about baseball. But that was it. Real quick.
There you go. So you've got someone who was kind of there, and my dad was there. So,
Isn't that interesting?
so yeah, it was according to the American Film Institute, the #3 greatest sports movie of all time, behind Raging Bull and Rocky.
Oh, I love Rocky.
Okay. When Goldwyn was looking, he was considering other candidates. I'm trying to find where there was a list of some of the other candidates they were considering, but I can't find it here.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah, right. Oh, okay, so here it is. This is from before. Remember you were saying who the sports writer, the friendship with the sports writer? It was loosely based on writer Fred Lieb, who was one of Gehrig's closest friends. Okay, and then what else? Oh, yeah, Mike, go right ahead.
Interesting to note that if there's anybody in the medical field here who can address this, but they still call ALS Lou Gehrig's disease.
That's right.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's interesting to note that his dominance in the medical profession sort of carries through to today.
Right.
Was he one of the first people diagnosed with it? Is that why?
No.
That's
No, he was the most famous person
Yes.
diagnosed with it at the time. So that's why it became a big deal, right? Okay, so yeah, after seeing the film, Eleanor Gehrig said, Gary and Lou have the same expressions. They are the same type of man. Gary studied every picture of Lou's. He had every one of his mannerisms down to a science, and he is so like my husband in the picture that there were times when I felt I couldn't bear it. She wanted Barbara Stanwyck or Jean Arthur to play herself, but she said after seeing Teresa Wright, she was won over. When Sam first told me Teresa would play me, I felt she was much too young. She thought an actress with more experience would be better, but now I know no one could do better or even as well as little Teresa. Of course, she's prettier and younger, but then no woman could object to that, could they? And Teresa Wright that was one of 3 nominations she got within 2 years.
I thought she was great. I thought she
Yeah.
really did a good, and
Yeah,
she
I
didn't overact, just
Right.
was,
Right.
you know, just effusive and great.
The fraternity in the movie was fictional. It was actually Phi Delta Theta he was a member of. Oh, and do you remember the bracelet that Gehrig had made for her?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
That was the real bracelet
Oh, wow.
that Gehrig gave her, and Eleanor gave it to the production company to use. It's now in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And somewhere in here, I've got what all they are. It's like his MVP awards and other stuff like that, batting title, things like that. Okay, thing of now, you know, that movie now could not be made the way it was. There were exactly 4 black men and 1 black woman who appear on screen. Only the train porter and shoeshine man have lines, and they were quick throwaway lines.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But that was the time.
That was the time, right? That was it.
3 days,
The baseball
Jackie.
scenes were filmed at Wrigley Field, not the one in Chicago. It was in Los Angeles, the home of the LA Angels at the time of the Pacific Coast League. It was named for William Wrigley, the chewing gum magnate. It was demolished in '69 and is now part of a community center, a mental health center, and Wrigley Little League baseball and softball. So that's what happened to where they filmed the movie. So here it says about the hospital scene. Okay, Babe Ruth, yeah, promised one for the 1926 World Series. It's unclear if the hospitalized child, actually Johnny Sylvester, initiated the request himself or had been the idea of the father or uncle as an effort to lift his spirits. Ruth sent back from St. Louis a package that included 2 balls, one autographed by members of the Yankees and the other by players from the Cardinals. Inscribed on the ball was a note from Ruth that read, "I'll knock a homer for you on Wednesday in Game 4 of the series." Ruth went on to hit 3 home runs in the game, but the Yankees lost the series in 7 games. This event was also memorialized in Seinfeld, the Wink episode in 1995. I thought that was kind of interesting. And, all right. Okay.
So, but according to that, Lou Gehrig did not hit a home run.
Or 2 home runs.
No, it didn't say anything about Gehrig hitting the home runs.
Right.
I say put that in.
All right. In 2019, Sandomir wrote another article. 80 years ago, the luckiest man took the field one more time. Okay, I won't go into all of it. Much of the speech no longer exists intact. Poor preservation of newsreels has left only 4 known surviving lines. For the past 2 weeks, you've been reading about a bad break, leads into the luckiest man declaration, which was shifted to the end in the speech and the movie. In another sentence, he refers to his 39 teammates as fine-looking men who were standing in uniform in the ballpark today. His last line also survived, and I might have been given a bad break, but I've got an awful lot to live for. By the time he was asked to speak, he made a gesture to the MC, the sports writer Sid Mercer, that he would not say a word. Emotion had overcome him and he didn't want it. And Mercer looked and said, I shall not ask him to speak. I do not believe that I should. But the crowd was yelling so loudly, we want Lou, that he had to. And then he made the speech like kind of off the cuff. Gehrig's performance as a speaker that day was as remarkable as any he had as a player. Okay, let's see. Gifts were presented, speeches were made. All the while, Gehrig waited the guest of honor at a living funeral. After some encouraging words whispered by manager McCarthy, who adored Gehrig, he stepped to the microphone. When that moment was described by the screenwriters Mankiewicz and Swerling nearly 3 years later in their script for Pride of the Yankees, they wrote, the roar of the crowd is like a sustained note from a mighty organ. Lou waits for it to subside, but it doesn't. For him, this is a crucifixion as well as triumph, because he knows he'll have to die twice, and perhaps the worst ordeal for him is that little death known as goodbye. If Mankiewicz and Swerling's words struck a hyperbolic chord, Gehrig's did not. They were filled with gratitude for the people in his life. Eleanor, his parents, his mother-in-law, his Yankee managers, his roommate Bill Dickey, the New York Giants and the stadium's, says the New York Giants, I think he meant the Yankees, and the stadium's groundkeepers. Both versions of the speech, the real and imagined, raise one question. What would make a man who had received the diagnosis of a terrible disease speak only of good fortune and the people he was grateful for?
Life.
Gehrig offered some perspective later that year after he'd begun working as a member of New York City's parole commission. With his condition rapidly deteriorating, he put his name to a syndicated article, almost certainly ghostwritten, that explained what he felt was a lifetime of thankfulness for his parents, for making his high school football team, for attending college, for signing with the Yankees, for Eleanor. In words that echoed the speech, he wrote, this summer I got a bad break. The doctor said I couldn't play baseball. All right, I'm still the luckiest man on earth when you add things up. I've still got a long season of life to play out, and my team, America, is absolutely the best in the league. That's what counts.
Wow.
You didn't know that he was dying?
He did.
He
He did. But he said that anyway, right? Right. So,
What struck me, and there was one thing that struck me when, at the beginning, when Lou Gehrig got his break, someone didn't feel well.
right, Wally
He was
Pipp.
sick, so then he got to come up.
Yep.
And at the end, the same thing happened. He realized he couldn't play anymore. And he told the
Manager,
whatever.
yep.
And they went and told a rookie, you
Right.
can go in, and he popped up all excited. It was his turn, showed like now it's his turn.
Exactly.
But
The cycle
to try and
goes
make
around.
it,
So I had to
yeah.
play ball.
And it
Yeah.
ended his consecutive
Yes.
games
Right,
played of
right.
21-30,
Yeah,
yep.
21-30.
21-30, yep.
The other thing that struck me was the portrayal of their marriage. That the 16 years was it, or was
That's how long he
honeymoon.
played for.
It was like a
the
honeymoon,
Yankees,
the whole
16
marriage.
years.
That was
Right.
that was so unrealistic in my mind.
She, you know what?
Everyone's marriage is like that.
She really did keep a scrapbook for him. That was factual. She kept the scrapbook. And also, he had a memoir while he was a player. When he was 24, he started a memoir, which in the book, there's a book about it, came out in 2017, I think. It's his memoir of playing, and apparently it's very revealing that, and it informed the script a lot with some of the incidents. And I found the bracelet. It's comprised of 7 World Championship emblems, 6 All-Star Game charms, 2 MVP awards, the Sporting News MVP, and 1 representing the film Rawhide, obviously one of his favorite movies. And so the bracelets, it wrote to Eleanor with all my love forever, Lou, September 29th, 1937. It's now in display in the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, which if you haven't been to, I highly recommend it. So, yes.
Hey, Ed,
That he made does not
Ed?
exist anymore.
Right, it does
But
not
the only
exist.
way they got it for the
got
movie is, because Eleanor wanted to put it in the scrapbook.
It was Eleanor's recollection as
Right.
best she could, right?
And no, and then from the movie of Gary Cooper, because at that time they had it.
That's true.
They
Yes.
took it from
Mm,
there
got
and she
it.
put it
I know
in.
what you're saying.
Very
She
good.
I don't know what
she's
Right, yes,
Hey, Ed,
yes.
I have something unusual to ask you, unrelated to the movie, but to do with Lou Gehrig. And I read in Wikipedia, do you know how much Lou Gehrig weighed when he was born?
Yes, 14 pounds.
14 pounds is right.
Really?
Wow.
That's what I read. I didn't know you saw, I didn't know that was true or not. 14.
pounds.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I read that too.
Yeah.
14 pounds.
Not everything is right in
Yeah,
Wikipedia.
yeah.
He had 2 mothers. He had 2 mothers.
His mother
I
must
do
have,
have an interesting statistic.
Yeah, she lived through it.
Lou Gehrig, when he was in college,
was that?
folks, when Gehrig was in college at Columbia, he was pitching when they opened Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium in 27 with, the whole thing. And he had, I don't know if it was 27, may have been earlier, but he set a Columbia record for pitchers with 17 strikeouts the day Yankee Stadium opened. But he was pitching for Columbia. But like Babe Ruth, he was a pitcher
What,
too.
you want right there.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is cool.
So, okay, I think that wraps it up. Thank everybody. Appreciate everyone coming. And September 22nd, next time, I will send an email out to everyone involved, so you can vote.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I can't get it this time.